It's time for Community Connection, conversations with local people about interesting things. David Beard teaches at the University of Minnesota Duluth and incorporates board game design into the curriculum. Here's Dr. David Beard to tell you why.
So I teach at the University of Minnesota Duluth. I teach a course which introduces students to writing for board games.
Okay.
And I see two reasons to do that. The first is very sneaky, right? If you tell students you're going to teach them how to write instructions and procedures, they fall asleep. But if you tell them that you're going to teach them how to design a board game, they become very excited, right?
Yeah.
And you're basically teaching them the same skill set. But there's also a deeper cultural significance to this work in my mind, which is to say that a good board game forms a model or a picture of the world. And once you willingly step inside that model and picture of the world, your choices are constrained, your options are constrained, your visions of what a good ending is may be constrained.
There's a little bit of world creation then to it in a way.
200%. And it's easiest for people to think about this when I talk about Monopoly and say there's no way in Monopoly to establish collective ownership of the utilities.
Right.
There's no way to play Monopoly where everybody happily has just enough property to live contentedly on until they reach retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's only one way to win Monopoly, and it circumscribes your vision of how you relate to other people. Your goal is to bankrupt them. If you step into that picture of the world, it shapes, perhaps, we think, scholars think, it shapes how you behave in the rest of the world, right? The picture of the world that is built in a board game carries over into the picture of the world you may carry on in real life.
And I suppose this applies to arguments that people would say about video games or violent images on television. It's similar, except that instead of just absorbing it in a visual way, this is real application. So do you see this? It could both be good and damaging. Do you see more one versus the other?
I mean, it's a good question. Students will come to me and they will talk about video games and say, well, what does it mean if the only way you can interact with other people in this video game is to decide whether to shoot them or not? There's no way to have a conversation that would say move forward. And then, of course, students will say, well, what about Sims? And they will come up with, video games are much richer than people think they are, right? So there are more rich ways to interact with the world and with people in games. But I do think people think, well, because I'm participating in a violent game, I'm going to be a violent person. I don't think that's the right way to think about it. I think the right way to think about it is because I'm living in a game world, I have a limited array of choices. And I don't want to step out of that game world and believe I have a similarly limited array of choices. And so maybe one of the answers is to be exposed to multiple kinds of games. Maybe one of the answers is just to be reminded, hey, this is a picture of the world. It's not the whole world available in the game, and the real world has many more options available in front of you.
When it comes to developing a game, so certainly you're doing these with the students for the purpose of writing technically.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the actual development of the game, do you ever have fun with it to the point of saying, I wonder if we can apply some ethics to this game?
I think one of the best examples I can have of that, I had some students co-enrolled in my class and in a class in which they were studying the literature of Vietnam. And so in my class, they were developing a board game which would represent some portion of the Vietnam War. And a number of students did your kind of traditional Risk or Axis and Allies model. You're moving little pieces that represent artillery around a board, so you're controlling area on the board. Whoever controls the area wins the war. A couple of students did something that might be like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of version of the Vietnam War, where you become a soldier and you equip yourself with stuff, and then you basically move through the land and shooting things. But the fundamental mechanic is still capturing territory in the role-playing sense. And then I had one group of students who knocked my socks off, because they developed a very simple game. It was a square board with 36 squares around the edge, and you would just move around the edge of the board game, and when you made it to the other end, the game was over.
Okay.
And along the way, you would draw event cards. Things would happen to you, right? You would have to roll dice to see if you made it through whatever the event was.
But ultimately, it was linear with a couple of maybe go back 3 spaces or lose X number of dollars that you have, whatever it happens to be.
Exactly. And I finally said to them, I don't understand. How does this represent the experience of the war? And they said to me that they were trying to represent the experience of the soldiers, who fundamentally didn't care whether that area of land was captured or whether that artillery was in place. They only wanted to make it the length of their tour of duty and go home.
Was there, yeah, okay, my mind is blown a little bit too, because it is so simplistic, yet there's something complex captured in that. Was there a way to not make it to the end? Like if you drew the wrong cards, would you be like, you're out of the game, you're done, you didn't make it to the end?
You would die, right?
Wow.
There were opportunities to die along that way, but your only goal was not to win the war. Your goal was to live long enough to go home.
And I suppose because of that, it almost became a collective or a collaborative game where it's like, hey, if you make it to the end too, cool. If you make it there after me, before me, I'm happy about that. It becomes this communal thing where it's like, I don't want to root for you to be left behind. I want you along. Let's all get to the finish line.
Exactly. It blew my mind because it was a picture of the war and a picture of the world that was so completely different from any other game representation I've ever seen of the war. And it reminded me that if we work with students, if we work with people to understand that games are pictures of the world, and we tell them the pictures you make are infinite. The pictures you can make are infinite. Show me what it is you think is most important about this experience and make a picture of the world of your own. They do amazing things.